When Dr. Pieter Groenewald announced he was bringing back punitive labor in our prison system, it was met with vitriol, especially from the left. You see, the idea of using hard labor as a punishment is profoundly out of line with the liberal human rights-centric worldview. These developments were not merely administrative reforms. They represent something far more consequential, a direct challenge to the ideological framework that has shaped South Africa's correctional policy for nearly 3 decades, or in its entire new dispensation. The first and only real right-wing or conservative ideological shift in any post-1994 sphere of our government. But how is this silent but profound change to a right-wing system of punitive measures working out for Pieter Groenewald? For decades, South Africa's penal policy drifted towards a framework heavily influenced by the neoliberal school on human rights discourse, where inmate labor increasingly became politically sensitive. Productive prison work, once considered just the norm, was gradually reframed by critics as exploitative, coercive, or incompatible with human rights norms. These liberal critics argue that forcing wage-free labor inside prisons amounts to slavery, creating a dual labor system outside normal labor market protections, a structural contradiction in liberal labor law. Many of these neoliberal critiques argue that the combination of mass incarceration, punishment-driven labor, and market deregulation collectively undermines the workers' rights outside of prison and social equity for the prisoners itself. While South African law in itself has never actually prohibited prison labor, the Ministry of Correctional Services in the past have been very cautious against using prison labor in any productive sense, framing it expressly in terms of the liberal worldview approach. In the 2008 amendment to the 1998 Correctional Services Act, which was introduced by the Minister of Correctional Services at the time, who was Nkonde Balfour, it was stated that, and I quote, "Sufficient work must, as far as practicable, be provided to keep sentenced offenders active for a normal working day, and a sentenced offender may be compelled to do such work, but that a sentenced offender may never be instructed or coerced or compelled to work as a form of punishment or disciplinary measure." The purpose of prison labor outlined in this act show that while South African law has never prohibited inmate labor, it has also never been understood as a means of actually saving taxpayer money or productively contributing to society, but merely with a framework and with the aim of rehabilitating the prisoners themselves. Under the influence of neoliberal framework, inmate labor was never thought of in terms of its potential economic contribution. This, despite the fact that throughout the century, South Africa's prison population consistently averaged around 150 to 200,000 inmates. This is one of the highest incarceration rates in the world, more than double that of most European and South Asian countries. Pieter Groenewald saw 200,000 laborers ready to build towards the economy, like in the old days, when most of our mountain passes, for example, were built by bandits providing forced labor. Following the 2024 election and the formation of the Government of National Unity, there has been a significant change in terms of the approach followed by the Department of Correctional Services under Groenewald. With one of his steps, Pieter Groenewald took as minister to announce a comprehensive review of this country's parole system so as to ensure fairer and more transparent parole decisions. Furthermore, he also highlighted the need to deport criminal foreigners instead of keeping them incarcerated in South Africa, which costs the taxpayer hundreds of millions every year. The Department of Correctional Services has also now, for the very first time since 1994, made productive inmate labor, which essentially aims at saving taxpayer money, a future of correctional services. Having prisoners now work in farms and bakeries and gardens and abattoirs aimed not at rehabilitation, but specifically at cutting costs to the taxpayer itself. Increasing self-production in prisons helps mitigate the effects of budget cuts and reduces dependency on any outside suppliers. One of the most important reforms that has now been implemented in South Africa's Correctional Services Program has been the introduction of bakeries at South Africa's prisons, where inmates bake their own bread, which costs the taxpayer less than half of what bread sourced from any external suppliers had to cost.
We have a self-sufficient program. We have agricultural land, we have shops, steel shops, we have wood shops, we have textile shops. We use inmates to produce that. Now this bakery is an example. When it comes to food and specifically bread, then we have inmates that contribute so that we can supply bread at a much cheaper price. For instance, he can supply a loaf of bread for about 8 rand per loaf, where at the moment we are buying bread from external suppliers for about 23 rand and 50 cents. Countrywide, this is the 13th bakery, and we hope to increase it to 20 by 2028. So that is what we try to do. So we save only on this, or in this bakery, 3 million annually for the taxpayer. If you add all the other activities for self-sufficiency, the previous year we have saved the taxpayers about R500 million. We're producing our own vegetables, we have piggeries, we have abattoirs, and I want to see that we enhance that.
Now, having already saved taxpayers R500 million or around $30 million last year, Groenewald's punitive system and his department are now moving forward with the next step, which is for all state departments to buy even all of their furniture from the Department of Correctional Services.
Yes, we have bakeries. We produce food. We have workshops. My furniture in head office is completely manufactured by Correctional Services. We are in the process where we can get other state departments to say, don't go to the private sector, come to Correctional Services. We can give it for a cheaper price, with sometimes higher quality and better furniture. So that is what we must look at. So that is a priority. And I see these projects of self-sufficiency also as part of rehabilitation.
If Groenewald's prison furniture business start producing at full scale, these reforms could save the taxpayer up to R1 billion or around $70 million annually. What makes these reforms significant is not merely their budgetary impact, but the entire ideological shift and the departure that they represent. For nearly 3 decades, South Africa's correctional policy operated within a framework that increasingly prioritized abstract rights and sensitivities over institutional function, economic reality, and corrective discipline. Prisons were treated primarily as hotels, custodial environments governed by normative constraints of liberalism, rather than as structured institutions capable of generating measurable value through the hundreds of thousands of free laborers that they represent. The underlying philosophy was very clear. Labor existed to serve rehabilitation narratives, but never to serve fiscal sustainability or productivity, or to save the taxpayer any money whatsoever. It just became cash cows. The emerging self-sufficiency model fundamentally disrupts this paradigm by reintroducing a principle long abandoned in modern correctional discourse, especially in those countries that follow a humanist or human rights-centric ideology. that correctional institutions need not function solely as passive cost centers or hotels for criminals, but can operate as partially productive environments capable of offsetting its own economic burden to the taxpayer. This shift is a decisive break from the neoliberal right-centered framework that had crippled correctional services in South Africa, of course alongside corruption and incompetence over the last 30 years. In a country being crippled by corruption and incompetence, rising debt costs and declining state capacity, our prisons may serve as the beacon of hope and a reminder of how dramatically different South Africa actually could look under capable leadership, which, to be very frank, puts the ANC absolutely to shame. In a recent video, we concluded that the total estimated costs of only the infrastructural decline under ANC governance since 1994 are around 23.5 trillion rands. Check out the full research report by clicking on this link appearing on your screen right here. And please do consider becoming a paid member of the Willem Petzer Group to invest in us and support our work so we can pay everyone's salaries and keep producing videos like these every single day. Simply follow the easy steps underneath me. Goodbye and God bless.